Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. This is NFA Live. Here we are every single Thursday. Happy to have both of you guys back. We have Guy from Coin Bureau. How are you going? How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Ben. Good to see you guys.
And Rob from Digital Asset News. How's it going, Rob?
Fantastic. Just like the markets, everything's going good.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you're not subscribed to either of their channels, links are in the description below. We rotate where we do NFA Live. So if you want to watch it next week, it'll be on Rob's channel. A week after that, it will be on Guy's channel. So we're basically just gonna go through some questions fairly quickly, and then we will take some audience questions. Feel free to go ahead and ask those questions if you have some, and then I will try to flag some of them to ask later. But let's go ahead and get started. I mean, it seems like there's been some increasing interest in the crypto space for the last like 6 weeks or so. Um, so I'm curious, I mean, obviously there was the election results about 6 weeks ago. Have you guys, just anecdotally, we could always like go to the data, but anecdotally, do you see any interest picking up kind of in your neck of the woods in crypto? Like, are people starting to sort of ask questions about it? Are your friends or your family asking questions about it? I'm kind of curious. It's kind of an interesting way to gauge where we are in the cycle, like who's asking about it and who's not asking about it. Guy, we'll start with you on this one. What are your anecdotes for recent interest in crypto?
Yeah, this is interesting. I always find it fascinating, sort of if people are talking about it and if they are talking about it, what they're actually saying. And for the past couple of weeks, last week and the week before, I was back in the UK, so I was very sort of keen to get a read from family and friends. So I went to a big 40th my first weekend back, and I spoke to a couple of guys about it there, and they were sort of kind of aware that things were looking up. One guy asked me how XRP was doing, and I said pretty well actually, and he was like, "Oh, that's great. I've had a massive bag of that since about 2017." So I was like, "Well, you may want to check that. That's probably looking better than when you last checked it." But
Did you
what was
tell
interesting
him?
was like I talked to a couple of. Sorry,
Uh,
Ben.
I was gonna say, did you tell him the price is the same it was in 2017?
Way to dump on everybody, Ben.
I
Way to dump on everybody. Nice.
I I couldn't do that to him. I couldn't do that to him. But I said, yeah, certainly it's improved. It's improved a lot. And I spoke to a couple of other guys about it, and because there were a few people there that I hadn't seen for a while, and they were sort of like, "Oh, what are you up to these days?" And I was like, "Well, doing crypto in Dubai." And they were, "Oh, crypto." And what it kind of told me was like from what they said and the questions they asked, I was like, these guys they don't know anything about it, and that's not a reflection on them. They're not like they're all smart. They were all smart people, but it was sort of like, yeah, crypto. So Bitcoin's the big one, isn't it? It's like, yeah, Bitcoin's the big one. And then it's what's the other one? Ethereum, right? It's like, oh, wow, this is this is going to be a long. So how deep do you want to go? So yeah, they were kind of aware, but like very unawares, and I felt there's quite a long way to go. But what was interesting, I then was with my parents for a week, and in the space of a single day, my parents had some people round, and they were asking about Bitcoin, and they said, "Oh, it's just it's just got $100,000, hasn't it?" Yep, that's true. Isn't there a chap who lost it all and it's in a rubbish dump somewhere? I was like, yep, that's absolutely right. Yep, okay. And then Katie and I went to the pub for a couple of drinks that evening, and there were some people at the end of the bar, and I kind of overheard them, and they were like, "How about that Bitcoin, eh? That Bitcoin, yeah. I heard, yeah, it's something like 100K dollars for one now. You hear about that bloke who threw it all out and it's stuck in the landfill?" It's like this James Howells guy is now like a main character, without realizing it. But yeah, like that, yeah. So kind of people are aware. People are sort of talking about it again, but I kind of got the impression, just for a very small sample size in the UK, I kind of got the impression it's starting to register, but really the nuances of it, it's like there's Bitcoin and then there's a load of other stuff, isn't there? And there's there's a Hawk Tour meme coin, right? And it's
Ah,
God, yeah.
golly.
Yeah, which was bad. Like I felt that was one of those moments that probably just set everything back several months, because it's like, there was a fair bit of mainstream media interest when Bitcoin hit 100K, and but I felt that was kind of way outpaced by the amount of interest about the Hawk Tour meme coin rugging, or everyone selling, or whatever it actually was. And you were just like, oh, this is so bad for the image. It just reinforces a lot of people's preconceptions about it. So short answer, I think we got a long way to go.
Well, that's always good to hear. Rob, any anecdotes in your neck of the woods? It seems like Guy is thinking, there's some interest, but still potentially a ways to go.
Now, the only thing I did is the same story with Guy, and I'm guessing this is what everybody heard from their friends and family. Hey, Bitcoin went over 100K, right? That's crazy. Did you watch the game last night? It's like that meme, that you've seen before, and that's pretty much what it was. I thought I would get a little more response for the Brad Garlinghouse 60-minute interview, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but nobody told me about that one. And it just goes to show you that sometimes when people talk about legacy media is dead, I think most of those views for 60 minutes were probably the crypto people, because I don't hear anybody else really talking about it. So as far as like anecdotal, the only people that have come back up to me is just like Guy, like, hey, XRP is doing good. Hey, Cardano's doing good. Hey, this Dino coin from the last cycle doing good. And I think that's why everything is pumping on the Dino cycle, because the people are coming back and going, oh, I remember what happened in 2020, 2021. Everything just took off. I'll just do that again. And then I'll, try to round trip my bags yet again, because people don't know how to sell, which is good for me. I'm happy. Come on in. I got plenty of bags to dump on you. But yeah, it's the same thing kind of going over and over again. I don't think people are here yet as far as like major retail.
Almost wonder if maybe that's why some people have come back, is because a lot of the coins from last cycle started going up a lot more recently.
I think it's what people know, right? If you had a narrative and you're like, I don't know what Hawk Tua token does, I have no idea, but I know that XRP is for the banks, right? And it's supposed to be cross-border payments, on-demand liquidity. Okay, I'll get into that. And Cardano was like the Ethereum killer from 2017. So maybe they just do that stuff. That's how I see it.
Well, speaking of Brad Garlinghouse, that's basically the next thing I want to talk about, Rob. So we'll go ahead and start with you, since you mentioned it. He recently went on 60 Minutes. I haven't actually had a chance to watch it yet. I have seen some, people provide a little bit of commentary on it, but I'm curious, like, did you watch it? And what are your thoughts about how the interview went?
Honestly, I wasn't going to watch it until you asked the question. And I'm like, well, I got to watch it, because what I saw was, I saw the same responses you guys did. And I'm like, well, no one's really watching 60 Minutes anymore, so who really cares? But it was just the same thing over and over again. Brad Garlinghouse was on it. And if anyone wants to watch it, it's 13 minutes. Probably the best parts are Brad, but the host pretty much kind of lays into the story as like crypto is essentially trying to manipulate people, because they did a super PAC and they raised all this money and they're influencing these congressmen and women, and now they have like a vast majority, which is bad and evil. That's not really how it works. This is America. We do what we want to do, and we have a freedom to do these things. If we want to put money into something to educate people, so much the better. I believe the banks did that not too long ago, and it worked out pretty well for them. Ask Senator Elizabeth Warren. So when we have all these things happening in the background, and they talk about that, and the problem with the legacy media, and I really saw it in this one, was that it's 13 minutes, and you can't get a context of what Brad is trying to talk about and what John Reed Stark, who was a former SEC chairperson. No, he was part of the SEC. I think it was the Internet Enforcement Division. And where he talks about how negative it is and how it's for illicit activity, but he really couldn't expand on it. And then Brad came in and he was talking about, giving counterpoints. But again, 13 minutes isn't enough. So like this one, you can watch it, but it really won't do much for you. And I don't really think people are really looking at that as like, I'm going to watch 60 Minutes for investment advice. But there's one funny quote here, which was from the SEC. And they said, Gary Gensler was a professor at MIT when the Trump administration SEC brought charges against Ripple. For years, the SEC supported compliance with the securities laws. Any amount spent by the crypto industry, the super PACs, on legal defense or influence peddling, that's a good word, that's a good statement, influence peddling, pales in comparison to the savings lost by crypto investors to frauds and failures. And as a reminder, Gary did a really crappy job at that. The only thing that I think he really helped us from was staking with Kraken. So if anybody has any fingers to point, it's Gary Gensler, as he met with Sam Bankman-Fried multiple times, and he couldn't even protect people from FTX, even though he knew the person in front of him. So, there was one last thing, and I would like everybody to know this, is that people will talk about how, like, you're going to hear this from your whoever, Bitcoin and crypto is used for illicit activities, and you can use all these different things for like drug smuggling, and it's used with the cartels and whatever else. There was this study, and it was commissioned, part of it, by Michael Morrell. He is the former acting deputy director and director of the CIA. This is in 2021. And his findings were this, which is why this always makes me mad when I hear people like John Reed Stark start to rep off some things about illicit activity. And he says very simply, the broad generalization about the use of Bitcoin and illicit finance are significantly overstated. The blockchain ledger in which Bitcoin transactions are recorded is an underutilized forensic tool that can be used more widely by law enforcement. You're welcome to read it. I'll link it in a show I'll do later. But it angers me that those types of pieces are out. But I mean, what can you get in 13 minutes? That was my assumption of what I saw. I could be wrong.
No, I mean, it's good to hear your opinion. Guy, did you have any different takes?
Well, I watched. I kind of was able to find a sort of highlights package, if you like, of the interview, of the program, I should say. And I mean, I thought that there's some interesting things stuck out to me. I didn't realize that the crypto industry supported 29 Republicans in the election that you've just had, 29 Republicans and 33 Democrats. So, the idea that this is a purely sort of, right-wing focused industry is completely wrong. And 85% of those candidates won. So this is something that's bipartisan. It doesn't, they're supporting more Democrats than Republicans. I thought that was really interesting. And a third of all direct contributions to super PACs came from crypto companies, which I thought was very interesting as well. And it just shows the power of this industry, and I think it's really sort of insidious the way that the program and plenty of others are sort of painting this as the crypto industry being this sort of uniquely manipulative entity that's trying to buy the election. It's like this is American politics. Like, lobbying is huge. Like, every industry lobbies, and the crypto industry is just better organized and better funded than a lot of others, and was remarkably effective. And I think, okay, they can paint that as a negative, and obviously we're kind of biased, but I think that's a huge positive, and I think that reflects very well on the industry itself, and that it's prepared to fight to try and get these pro-crypto candidates in, and to try and get this legislation that we're crying out for. And that was something that Brad, I think, did a good job of saying. He's like, we're not asking to be exempt. We're not asking for exemption, which I think was kind of what the program sort of seemed to be implying. I think at points, it's like, oh, crypto, they want things all their own way. It's like, no, we just want regulation. Like, we're not asking for special treatment. So I thought that was really interesting. And what else stuck out to me? I think. Sorry.
There was this one comment where Brad said, because they talked about SBF, and they said, well, that guy's the biggest scammer in crypto, and that registers crypto. And he said, well, Bernie Madoff, it was essentially a scamster, but doesn't mean that all entire equities and hedge funds are bad people.
Yeah,
that was one.
This is the way it's always been. Like, if there's a bad actor in crypto, then that reflects back on all of crypto. Whereas out in the TradFi world, it's just them. It's not the system. I guess it's the same sort of thing. It's like, well, much more illicit financial activity takes place with cash, which is way more untraceable than Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies. But no one talks about banning cash, do they? It's sort of it's kind of one rule for TradFi and a completely different set of rules for crypto, apparently. And that's something that we've kind of dealt with for years now. So it was nothing new. I thought from what I saw of the program, I thought it was kind of funny. I felt the woman conducting the interview and just sort of the presenters in general they looked so disgusted to be talking about crypto. They really sort of. Yeah, it looked like they'd caught a whiff of something disgusting whenever they were talking about it. I thought that was funny. But another thing that kind of stuck out to me about it was I'd forgotten, or maybe I wasn't aware to start with, just how shonky and rubbish US broadcast TV is. You guys when it comes to making shows or making films and stuff, you guys knock it out of the park. But actual kind of broadcast current affairs TV, it was comically bad. I was like, was this made in 1999? With that sort of ticking stopwatch thing. I was like, wow, this is real third world stuff. And I know this is gonna annoy a lot of Americans in the comments. You're just gonna be like, oh well, some Brit who thinks he did. But actually, you guys should take a leaf out of British TV. We may produce a lot of crap, but we do it well. But I was just like, wow, this is so dated. But it kind of got me thinking as well. Maybe this is a sort of comment on sort of mainstream media in general. These guys are so out of touch. And I think I saw a comment. I watched this highlights package on YouTube, and I saw a comment. It's like, Brad shouldn't have been wasting his time with this. He should have gone on Joe Rogan. And I thought, actually, yeah. This is I think it's kind of a waste of time. I think shows like 60 Minutes and are so much of this mainstream media stuff, and that no political bias here, whether it's on the right or on the left. I think it's all just broadcasting to its own echo chambers, and I think a lot of people are disengaged with it. It looks like it's from the late 20th century, a lot of it. And I think it just highlights the fact that the media landscape is changing so much. People are getting their information from YouTube. People are getting their information from Twitter and TikTok. But but I think the rise of the podcasters, and this was talked about a lot in context of the election, wasn't it? The Joe Rogan talking to Donald Trump was huge, and I think it just reinforced to me that kind of legacy media is dying. And it needs to get with the program.
Thank God.
I had a couple of thoughts because you mentioned the Bitcoin and sort of a lot of the scams that occur in crypto. But the thing is, and as you mentioned, right? I mean, and I think Rob was talking about this too. At least it's traceable. I mean, and think about every scammer that launches a meme coin rug pull thing, and then rugs. And we just had the one last week. And then within minutes you have tons of on-chain detectives figuring out what actually happened. So it seems like I think some people forget, the people that sort of commit these they do these things. I think that they kind of forget that what they do is actually traceable. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you didn't know Guy was from the UK, you do now, because he did use the word rubbish. I don't know if anyone else.
that wasn't just a really good accent that he was trying to pull off. He's from there.
Does that have to be translated for you guys? Do you not have that word at all?
I don't think it's even part of the language. Yeah, I don't think anyone says it over here.
Nobody says it over here. But I know where you're from, because I hear rubbish. I heard Smart Money Crypto said it yesterday, and I'm like, oh, okay, UK, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great word. It's a great word. Trash. No, rubbish. It's no good. You go back to rubbish. It'd be much better. Actually, speaking of scams, I did see a comment earlier from Ronnie. Can I just clear this up for people watching? Guy, it says for Guy, is the CBR drop legit? Got an email. Guess what, Ronnie? No, it's not. We are not launching a token. If you've got an email about a Coin Bureau token, it's a scam. Please don't do anything. This stuff happens all. Oh, so annoying. It's not legit. Yeah. So don't click on anything.
Hey, here's a quick question. Talking about if people coming back in, how many scam emails do you guys get a week from your exchange, whether that be Coinbase or Binance or whatever you're using? How many scam emails do you get? Because right now I'm counting 7 so far this week.
A few.
Huh.
Yeah, I think I have like 49,000 unread emails, so I couldn't tell you.
There you go.
I have been getting a lot of people like reaching out to like promote their like their meme coin, that kind of stuff. I have seen those.
Wow.
But I just, I always just ignore them, or I tell them I'm not interested. But
no, it's pretty nice. Yeah, just ignore.
Yeah, usually I just ignore.
I think a lot of it is being AI generated now. I get tons of emails asking about like content on coinbureau.com, and it's so like I was like, where have all these people popped up from? But I think it's all just AI. That's another use case for it right there.
Scary.
Well, the next thing, Eric Trump recently said, and I quote, he says, "I'm confident that Bitcoin is going to hit 1 million." What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with this assessment or disagree? Rob?
If we keep printing money, then yes, that's pretty much it. Last thing I'll say is I'm glad that people in the administration are so bullish on Bitcoin. I don't think the Biden administration was nearly that bullish, so that's good. But yeah, why not?
Guy, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think he said that it was going to hit 1 million during his dad's presidency.
Holy
so
smokes.
Within the next 4 years.
Right. Yeah, within the next 4 years.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think if the money printing goes on and the dollar continues to devalue, then it's probably a question of just when, not if, Bitcoin hits 1 million. I kind of think maybe if we start seeing nation state accumulation. I know we've talked about this idea of a strategic reserve a few times because it's kind of very much a meme in crypto at the moment, isn't it? But if the US does start accumulating, if other countries start accumulating, then that I think that would accelerate that charge towards 1 million. Like I say, I think maybe within the next 4 years is a little bit ambitious, but certainly not impossible. Which just in itself is kind of crazy. And what's interesting is I think if Bitcoin was to hit 1 million, that would kind of be quite neat because that would give it a market cap roughly on a par with gold, and obviously Bitcoin, digital gold, etc. So, yeah. I think maybe project a little further out, maybe sort of by 2030 and stuff. That could be more realistic. I don't think in 4 years.
Yeah, it seems like one of those things. Seems like one of those things where people like overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term.
Exactly.
So probably something like that. Next question, Guy. We'll start with you on this one. And by the way, guys, if you have questions, feel free to ask them because we only got a couple more questions here. We like to get some audience questions, but CZ recently said that he tweeted this out. He says, "I'm not against memes, but meme coins are getting a little weird now. Let's build real applications using blockchain." I'm kind of curious. It seems like the meme coin discussion this cycle has been a little bit more elevated than it was in prior cycles. They've always kind of been there, but it seems like this cycle we've especially seen it. I mean, there's even a lot of people talking about like meme coin super cycles and all that sort of stuff. But I'm curious, I mean, do you guys think that the industry has veered toward too much into the meme coin direction and not enough in like real world utility direction? I mean, I'm not saying that no coins offer utility, but I'm curious, Guy, what do you think? I mean, has the industry gone too far in that direction and we'll have to reverse course, or do you think it's just kind of the same as always, and it's it seems like it's loud, but maybe it's not as representative of the industry as we might think.
Yeah. This is an interesting one because I was kind of thinking about this for a recent video. Because it feels now that meme coins have been around for such a long time, but actually it was a very slow sort of start. You had Dogecoin come along quite early, and then sort of SHIB came along, and it was the Dogecoin killer or whatever. And then I think the following year you had like Floki or something like that, and then Pepe in 2023. But it was actually quite a slow process. You're basically kind of getting one big meme coin a year. And then obviously it all changed in 2024, and that is because of Pump.Fun, and has suddenly made it possible for anyone to create one of these things. And I kind of think I don't think necessarily the industry itself, as in the builders, developers, companies, trying to do stuff. I wouldn't necessarily say that perhaps that cohort of people have gone too far in the meme coin direction. But I certainly think, because of Pump.Fun, a lot of market participants certainly have. But I kind of feel that's a reflection of society. That's a reflection of this sense of financial nihilism that a lot of people feel, the kind of desperation to get ahead, and being prepared to sort of take these big kind of YOLO punts on these meme coins that will probably go to zero, but are still kind of better odds than a lottery ticket. Because it goes back to, I think it was Travis Kling who started talking about this earlier this year, and sort of highlighting the fact that for your average American, say, who's trying to get ahead, $500 isn't going to make a huge amount of difference one way or the other. So why not YOLO it all on a meme coin that could change their life? Because if they keep hold of the $500, it's not necessarily going to make any difference. So I think it's kind of, I think the whole meme thing is sort of feeding on the kind of wider society, the fact that the financial system is so broken, and I think seems so rigged against especially younger people, which is obviously kind of crypto's core audience. I think there are a lot of people out there who feel very disenfranchised, very disconnected, and don't feel like they have any other means of getting ahead. And I think meme coins have filled that gap, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing or necessarily a bad thing. I think it's kind of the market providing what people want. But yeah, I think the industry itself, there's been sort of quite a lot of hand wringing about it, hasn't there? And it's been like, is this all we've got? It's like, well, yeah, I think but it just goes to show how powerful and the importance in crypto of killer apps. It underlines this idea that crypto is going to take off once it gets killer apps, and Pump.Fun is exactly that. Like it was the app we didn't know we needed, or we didn't know we wanted. But I think it underlines just when these apps get created, when you give people what they want, then crypto, so much more becomes possible, and kind of things explode a bit. And this time it was meme coins. Let's hope as we get further into the cycle, there's a bit more utility. We get apps that offer sort of stuff that's a bit more useful. But like, Pump.Fun, it's crazy, and it's making so much damn money. It's extraordinary. So, I mean, that's been kind of thrilling to see.
Perhaps it just helps kind of showcase just how much excess liquidity there is sloshing around for that to even be a thing. I mean, you have to imagine that during really bad times, that something like that probably wouldn't be as successful. But with all the liquidity just kind of sloshing around, especially since the pandemic, it's given the ability of some of these things to really take off.
That's right.
Rob, what are your thoughts? I mean, what are your thoughts about the meme coin craze?
I was just thinking about what Guy said about utility. I want everybody to correct me in the comment section, but if all crypto and digital assets went away today, besides Bitcoin, would your life go on do you need anything in the digital asset space that is paramount that you cannot live without? And don't tell me that you need pump.fun for meme coins. I'm just curious because like when we compare like the crypto market and digital asset, I get Bitcoin obviously, and I'm a fan of altcoins. But if you take them away today, like what right now is a difference for you? And then another question would be like when we compare the internet to crypto and digital assets, we're comparing like a real utility there, but that is the internet. If you took away the internet today, how would your life change? If you took away Fartcoin today, how would your life change? So I think like some of these meme coins, I mean, it's gambling, nothing wrong with that. I used to live in Vegas; it's a great place, but it is what it is. And just like what Guy said, people who are younger, they don't think there's any other option for them because they weren't taught about investing in school. They weren't taught about risk assessment. They weren't taught about, long-term trends. So they look at this and go, I want to do that. And I think that's a huge pitfall. And I saw like even Hawk Tua. I saw somebody who said that they put their life savings in Hawk Tua. How bad are our education system where you put your entire life savings into a meme coin from a person that just got famous for spitting on whatever? So like meme coins will be around for a while, but the question I have is like, when is like the real utility going to really come in? And that's what I think about. And of course, in the comments, I'm not going to say my thoughts of this. Just tell me where the utility is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing. I think that's the sort of the thing, like, is the, I guess some people view it as like the meme coins. Some people would say like the meme coins kind of are the fun, the utility aspect of it. But is it, does it actually provide? I don't know. It's hard to, well, we'll see. We'll see in a few years. I'm curious, what are you guys' thoughts on 2025? I mean, Bitcoin has essentially been going up for a couple years now. Obviously, Bitcoin dominance was going up for a few years, but it's recently taken a big hit. Do you guys sort of think there's going to be some narrative shifts in 2025? Like, what are your general expectations for 2025, Rob?
Thankfully, I've been since 2017. I've never seen this much bullishness and this much tailwinds before. Like we talked about with the government and everything. I expect 2025 to be massive. And I think we've talked about this many a time, how this cycle doesn't feel like last cycle. It feels like the cycle like 2016 and 17, 18. So I see some pretty big return on investments, and I see things going much, much farther if we get regulation clarity. That was always my big thing. Just tell us what we need to do and we'll move forward. So I think 2025 will be good. The question I have, and I heard you guys, we were talking about this before, is, when's the next big pullback? I think we should expect to see one. I mean, we already had a little bit, but we're going to see some big pullbacks coming up, I think, relatively soon.
This person says investing in meme coins, classy if you're rich, trashy if you're poor.
This is actually 100% true.
Guy, what are your thoughts for 2025?
I agree with Rob. The tailwinds, especially now that the US has flipped pro crypto, are massive, and there's so much potential, I think, to be unlocked next year. So I think, I think one of the easier sort of predictions to make for 2025 is that we'll see some regulation coming out of the United States, and I think that will be huge. And that will, I hope, change a lot of people's perception of crypto and help give it the legitimacy that it doesn't always deserve, but not every sector of it deserves. But it will help. I think will help projects that are offering utility. Will give them a better environment to build in. So I think that's one thing we can look forward to. I think an important thing for 2025 is that the top will catch us all unawares. And I think, as we've seen in previous cycles, people will bag hold, people will hold it round trip a lot of their gains and things like that. And I think that underlines the fact that you have to have, as we've said before, you have to have a plan and stick to it. But I think it could come a lot earlier, or indeed a lot later than any of us suspect. So I think it's going to be really important to be sort of logged in and switched on. I think that's gonna make a lot of difference. And then I think one of the things that I've been just obsessing about recently is AI and AI agents, and I think that's going to. I think next year could see a huge shakeup from AI. I think one of the things I'm really excited about is this idea of AI agents being able to abstract away a lot of the complexities of dealing with. I think I might have mentioned this last week, but a lot of the complexities of interacting with crypto and blockchains. That next year may be a little bit early for that to for that to really be felt, but I think maybe by this time next year, I think it will be so much easier for your average person to interact with crypto, and they may not have to really give it all that much mind share. And I think that will mean that things like DeFi become much more entrenched, and it opens up. I think it just opens up so many opportunities. So I'm excited about that. I just think there's, it's rare that I've felt sort of as excited about a coming year, which probably suggests there's some massive black swan about to land. So I'll caveat that. But there's I think there's a ton of stuff to be excited about.
Well, yeah, you're probably right that the top will catch a lot of people off guard. And we've actually talked a little bit about sort of the cycle theories before. Normally Bitcoin tops Q4 of the post-halving year, which essentially would be almost a year from now. Obviously, there are discussions that we've had before, and that especially other people have had about like a left translated cycle. Could you see something like that? And it kind of reminds me of something that Rob always says, and it's just like, just take profits. You make money, take profits. No one knows what the future holds. You might. There's a famous quote that people say about, it's like, first of all, you won't go broke taking profits, obviously, but the way you get rich is to sell too early. It's better to sell. It's better to, I think Rob has said that a few times. It's better to sell too early than to basically hold on and wait for it to drop, 95%. Because some of those alts can drop a lot in bear market years.
Yeah, it's true. It was a quote from Baron Rothschild, and he said, "I made all my money by never buying the bottom and selling way too soon." And it makes sense. And like a lot of people are telling me that, or some people tell me like, "Hey, if we take a look from the halving to the peak point, we're looking at a year. That's April 20th, 2025." And I said, "Well, remember, we did go up. We had a double top, April 2021 and November 2021." They said, "Who cares? If I just get close to the first top, and I sell and it goes down, great. If it keeps going up, I mean, hey, I still got a pretty big profits." But I guess just whatever people want to do.
Well, I do feel like a lot of people are somewhat obsessed with like timing the bottom and timing the top, but I think most of the money is made sort of in the middle of the trends, like not, because no one can really time things perfectly. Let's get to some of the questions. So one question is, let's suppose you are able to take profits before the actual bear market begins. Where would you put it? Like, where would you put your gains? Let's say in 2026. Is there any asset class that you would look to sort of park your money during that year? For those who are new, historically, midterm years are bear markets for crypto. So it'd be 2014, 2018, 2022. So that's why they're saying 2026. So either of you guys have any ideas as to where you would park your money for that year?
Yes, I would put it on. No, I was gonna say I was put it all on meme coins. It's dumb, but what I would do is I would pay off this. Like I took some profits a couple months ago for an apartment complex, so I finally pay off the rest of that, and then just use the funds to accumulate in the bear market, and then start to use the risk bands, which I find in this great website, the Cryptoverse, and just pretty much play that again, and for the next one. I know people, and then people will say, but we're still too late, and we're not early. There's two things. First of all, Michael Saylor even said that Bitcoin at 100,000 is a 90% discount, and that would be up to $1 million. And then the second thing is, like, if you think that we're not early, or if you think that it's early or not early, just take a look at that Microsoft vote where 0.55% of all the board members approved for Bitcoin, and the 99% 0.445, said no way, not a chance in hell. So for me, like, I just think we're gonna keep having these cycles. I'll take those profits, I'll stick them on just because cash is king at some point for dry powder, and I'll pay off the rest of my other investments, which would be just this last complex.
Sounds like a good plan. Guy, any spot you would put your money in 2026?
I do like the idea of real estate. I mean, just because I think it's, well, it's great to have it's somewhere to live. And you can get an income off that, or even just saving on rent. So that would be somewhere where I'd look to park some profits. But I mean, I kind of think, by the time we're sort of 2026, presumably mid bear market, that's the time I'm probably going to be looking and trying to figure out what the next narratives are going to be, the narratives of the next cycle, and looking to allocate into that, because I've seen a few people in the comments saying, the money is made in the deep dark of the bear market, and they're right. So I'm not gonna put all my capital in at that point, but I'd certainly be looking to try and identify some early narratives. Things like, I mean, something that I think is going to be big at some point is quantum computing, because we saw this. Ben, you especially, I'm sure, must have been sort of fascinated by this Willow chip that Google unveiled this week. Which, what was it? So it can do in 5 minutes what it would take a regular supercomputer 10 septillion years to do.
Holy smokes.
Which is just mind-boggling. And obviously there was a lot of talk about, well, is this going to be, if a quantum computer is going to come along and be able to crack Bitcoin's encryption, and the answer is yes, but we've still got some time, I think. But like, there are crypto projects out there that are kind of focused on quantum computing. A lot of it obviously kind of quantum resistance. But so yeah, I mean, I think there will always be kind of new fascinating narratives to explore. That's one of them that I'm going to look at. Yeah, I think that would, looking for sort of longer term gains, that would be the time, hopefully, where getting stuff at absolute rock bottom prices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quantum computing.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, Ben, where are you going to pull your money? A new desk?
I already got a new desk.
Oh, so I'm sorry. You got rid of the cardboard.
I'm really interested in the real estate market, but every time we look at it, the math just doesn't math, right? It doesn't.
Mathing. Yeah.
I mean, Rob probably knows about, at least on, because I mean, I know he's in the real estate market and he's been in the real estate market for a long time. And I'm not saying there aren't any good deals out there. It's just that they're hard to find.
It's tougher and tougher. Yeah.
It's really tough. Yeah. And I think the hard part is, this is not including sort of the theoretical gains of the actual house. But when you actually calculate out your return from, say, investing in real estate, it's not any better right now. Again, this is excluding the appreciation of the house and also excluding potential tax benefits. But,
right.
It's only a few percent, right? I mean, it's only a few percent, unless you're, and that's why I think it's really hard for you. There's been a lot fewer deals out there going on. I mean, if you look at like real estate transactions, they're extremely low right now. And one of the reasons, of course, people don't really want to sell because they locked in like sub 3% 30-year mortgage rates, which is essentially free money when a T-bill is giving you 4 to 5%. So yeah, I think it'd be nice if the real estate market started to make a little bit more sense by 2026. Maybe it will. We'll see.
Yeah, right now it's like the deals are few and far between. And if you're looking for something great, you got to really dig, and something has to kind of come to you and say, okay, this is a great one. And that's it. Right. But real estate will go down, just like I'm sure there's a recession around the corner, just like everybody talks about.
Someone says, a couple people have asked about CPI and PPI.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually forgot that the PPI came out today, but apparently, so CPI came in a little bit. I mean, I think it came in line with expectations. It's been going up for the last couple of months, but it's still relatively low. But I guess about an hour ago, PPI came in, and in the previous, it was 2.6%, and the estimated for today was 2.6, but it actually came in at 3%. So it actually came in a little bit higher, you can see the dollar, the DXY got a little bit of a jump today. I think the dollar is probably going to keep rallying into the end of the year, just like it did at the end of 2016, and that was also after Trump got elected. It just kind of seems like a carbon copy of Q4 2016, to a large extent. But I don't have any other thoughts on it. I mean, obviously PPI is a little bit hot, but I went to go check on rate cut probabilities, and there's a 98% chance that they're going to cut rates again. So I think a lot of people are confused because it's like, well, if inflation's trending up and all these markets are putting in new all-time highs and meme coins are flying, like, what's the incentive to cut rates? I guess it's the fact that, there are some, they want to slow down the labor market weakness, right? Initial claims came in today at like 242, which is still, in the 200s, so not too concerning. But I don't know. It's one of those things where no matter what they do, they're probably going to get, chastised for it in a couple of years.
Yeah, true.
You guys have anything to add to the inflation stuff, or should we just move on to the next one?
My favorite topic? No.
One of the questions I'm kind of curious you guys have, if you have any defense for this. Someone says, my biggest point they always have to defend is the energy costs and effect on the environment. This is something that kind of pops up a lot. I'm assuming they're talking about like mining, and just sort of securing the networks and whatnot. Do you guys have any useful counterpoints for when someone says, it's destroying the environment or something like that, as far as crypto is concerned?
Guy, you want to take it, or I'll take it? I can take it. It's relatively simple. There's a couple different ways that they can do things. First of all, if you're using renewables, wind's the worst. But if you can use solar, then it's renewable energy source. You can use that. But on the flip side is this: there's this thing called flaring for natural gas. When you do a flare, essentially you're blowing off the natural gas for excessive compounds. What the miners will do is they'll move it closer to these areas, and then they will use that trapped energy, and they will power up their Bitcoin mining operation. And because of that, they can actually generate income. This is happening in small towns in Texas, and they're actually generating revenue because of the Bitcoin and actually generating jobs. Another other part of this is hydroelectric power. So if you go to different areas, once you have those paddles or those devices that actually turn and crank, and it actually makes that electrical source, that power, to get from the primary area to the area of which you are actually using it for retail or commercial, whatever else, you have some type of electrical energy loss. If you can move those Bitcoin miners closer, again, and you can put those into big metal bins. What are they called? The big, huge metal bin storage that you see on trains. They'll actually shove a couple of thousand miners in there, and they'll put it right next to the hydroelectrical source. So they can do those types of things. And we've also seen about these other areas in western parts of Texas, where they actually had these areas where it's the big mining or the big web service or plants where they have these big metal structures, big, huge buildings, and they go belly up and they move out. And now they put in the electrical miners and they just kind of reconstitute it. So all these things about electricity and it's not being used, if it's used in the right way and constructively, you can actually make a ton of funds. And what's great about this is that if you have excessive energy in the location, you can tell Bitcoin miners, hey, we have excessive energy. We'll give it to you at a discount or else it's going to be wasted. And then, of course, when there's an overload of the grid, we need you guys to shut down and we'll pay you a little bit. Great, we'll shut down and everybody's happy. So I don't understand. I mean, on certain places, yes, it actually does happen. But in most of the places, responsibly, they can make a huge impact. Roughly.
I think it's a good response. Someone wants to know. Oh, sorry, Guy. Did you want to add anything?
Sorry, Guy. Yeah.
No, well, yeah. I mean, it's this idea of balancing the grid, isn't it? Because I think there's this sense that, there's energy, and if Bitcoin miners are eating it all up, then that means there's none left for Granny Smith to heat her house. And it's like it doesn't work like that. The electricity grid is an enormously complex thing, and as you say, sometimes there is more energy that can be used, and that's when Bitcoin miners can come in, as you say, switch on, balance the grid, and switch off at other times. And yeah, and I think you touched as well on this idea that people can set up mining operations with renewable energy and generate generate income in poor areas. I mean, this is something that you're seeing a lot of in Africa at the moment. There are quite a few initiatives there where people are using sort of solar, I think wind power as well, to run these small scale mining operations, and it provides often quite remote communities with an income. And I think it's just, it's a case of like, I think it just underlines the fact that if we build more energy infrastructure, there is literally nothing that we can't do. And anyone says that Bitcoin mining is just a useless waste. No, because it's powering the most secure payments network on the planet. Right. Like these AI data centers, they are producing, they are absolutely eating up electricity, but people aren't complaining about that because that's giving people something in return. And if we build enough nuclear power stations, if we build enough other sources of renewable energy, then everyone can do, all these things can be accomplished, and human society will take an enormous leap forward. I think it's very sort of outdated thinking to just be like, they're just using up electricity that other people, that then isn't accessible to other people. It's like it's far more complex, far more nuanced than that.
Yeah. Hey, Ben, what was that thing you were talking about before? Like nuclear energy? There's like these little nuclear reactors that you can put in.
Small modular reactors.
How have we ever deployed any of those across anywhere, or are they just, was this theoretical?
Yeah,
or
there are small modular reactors. Yeah, there are some.
One,
I mean, it's not as popular as they probably should be, but there are some.
What's the problem? I don't get it, because like if we could, like what Guy said, if we can create more energy, we'd have more sustainability. Why can't we make more of those?
Well, I mean, we could. I mean, I think a lot of the risks associated with anything nuclear is just more so like public perception and sort of just regulations, right? It's almost like crypto is sort of under regulated. The nuclear industry arguably is over regulated. To the point where like it's almost impossible to get to see any type of change for large periods of time. So it's not that there's not any, it's just that progress on deploying that stuff is extremely slow, because they want to make sure they're doing it right and following all the regulations they need to. But you could argue, I mean, there have been nuclear accidents, right? It's not like we're ignoring that. But if you were to look at, sort of deaths associated with, other types of energy production, right? Whether it's like coal or other things, it's not, I mean, there's risks there as well, right? It's not like there's no risks anywhere. Obviously, when there's a nuclear accident, it certainly is a big deal. And the few that there have been, they've been really publicized.
Right.
And so it's sort of like a public perception of nuclear hasn't really always been that great. And I think that's kind of kept us back from harnessing that. But I do think that what Guy said is absolutely true. I mean, I think that energy, you saw the energy problems, and there's no really telling where we could go. I think energy is kind of one of the biggest limiting factors for us as just a civilization, right? Just producing energy and enough of it. And I guess what Rob said also, or I think it was either Rob or Guy, where it's sort of the utility. I think a lot of the people that think that it's wasting energy, like Bitcoin, they don't see the utility of it, right? So if you don't see the utility of it, they're going to say it's wasting energy. But if you actually see the utility of it, and you believe in the future of Bitcoin, then it's like, well, I mean, it makes sense. There's going to be a cost to have something like that, an energy cost. So, but I think that's kind of where the disconnect is the people that actually get it, or the people that don't.
Hey, real quick, if anybody would like to see a video of Ben talking about Bitcoin mining power and nuclear power together, please put that in the comment section right now, so Ben will actually do it, because we've already asked him 3 times.
No one's interested in that.
Okay.
I'm interested.
I'm going to a chess channel once I had 1 million subscribers. Let's do chess. Rob, your favorite topic? Someone asked. Is Bitcoin dominance going back to 60? I mean, look, it already went to 60. Now people are getting greedy, wanting it to go back. What do you think? Could it go back?
Yeah, you know, and I think it could go back. I'll tell you why. Is because if this Bitcoin strategic reserve, like there's a Bitcoin conference going on right now, or just got over yesterday or day before in Abu Dhabi, and there's been a lot of different rumors about the Middle East starting to invest in the Bitcoin strategic reserve. If that actually pops off, and what we heard from Eric Trump, Bitcoin do $1 million, why couldn't it go up? Because again, what I heard and what Guy heard was after all this pumps and all the things that were going on, hey, I heard Bitcoin was over 100K. That's the winner, I think. So yeah, why not 60%?
Yeah.
And then it'll go to altcoins again. Thanks, Rex.
It was interesting to. I was listening to Matt Hogan on Bankless the other day. Obviously, Matt Hogan, Bitwise, they have a spot ETF, and he was saying, which I found fascinating. It's like generally with ETFs, year one is absolutely dwarfed by year 2 and year 3.
Oh,
so and obviously the Bitcoin ETFs have been a runaway success. You can't overstate how successful they've been. But he was kind of suggesting it's like if they play out like other ETFs, we haven't even begun. So the allocation. I mean, BlackRock now holds 500,000. BlackRock alone holds 500,000 Bitcoin to back IBIT. The ETFs overall are now hold over 1 million, more than Satoshi, and we haven't even had a year. So yeah, I mean, if they go like that, then I think dominance could go back to 60 or maybe even over.
Yeah, interesting. I know that.
Yeah, I mean there are I mean there are certainly when the gold ETF launched. I mean, didn't gold go into a bull market for many years?
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on. I mean, everyone's somewhat different because when the QQQ launched in 1999, the market topped 54 weeks later. So it's not always clear, but no, I think you're generally right? Like usually it is a good thing for a while. It was a good thing for gold. And for tech stocks, it was great for a year.
Yeah.
And then it was not so great.
So Ben, if QQQ went roughly a year from the inception, when was the ETF? When did we get it approved?
So the QQQ was approved in March of 1999.
And then this ETF for Bitcoin?
It was January of 2024.
Okay.
So here's an interesting thing. So I mean, I think there's always a good chance Bitcoin just tops when it normally does in late 2025. But there is if the left translated cycle were to play out, there's at least a chance that you have to be aware of that, because the QQQ topped, it was 54 weeks after it launched, and 54 weeks after the Bitcoin ETF launched is Inauguration Day. Coincidentally.
Wow.
But and what's really funny about the QQQ is I've sort of talked about this on my channel some, is when it launched at 48, and when Bitcoin's ETF launched, it hit 48K. It's like it launched at like the same value. And then but the good news is the QQQ it broke 100 48 weeks later. Bitcoin broke 100K 47 weeks later. So Bitcoin was a little bit more successful than the QQQ. But the QQQ did end up going up to 120, right? So that's the good news. It did end up going to 120 before it got a pullback. And even though it got a pullback a year later, the music didn't really stop until a year after that, right? I mean, the markets were still, I mean, the QQQ stayed at like 100 for, it did get a drop to 60, but then it bounced back up to 100, and it was at 100 for another half a year after that. So you don't often see these things turn around just on a dime like that. So, and by the way, guys, just so one thing to remind people of is, if there is a drop in January, it doesn't mean it's the cycle top, right? I mean, obviously if it follows a QQQ, it could be, but if you look at historical post-halving years, the last two, 2017 and 2021, there was a 30% drop in January of the post-halving year. So do remember that. So even if you do get a drop in January, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end, right? It could just be your typical January of the post-halving year correction, which, by the way, could just be a pullback to a higher price than the current market is right now. So there's a lot of time between now and Inauguration Day. Let's get to actually we're already at 9:15. Let's get to one more question. And then we'll wrap it up. Maybe a more positive thing. So let me see.
Let me
There's a
find
lot
the
of
positive.
I'm struggling. Like, look at all these questions. Like, do you think the current ETF inflows would turn into outflows during the bear market, pushing the price lower? Actually, here's the question. Do you think Tesla will outperform Bitcoin in 2025? Tesla's been on a kind of a tear recently. It's up to
Yeah.
it hit 420 something yesterday. A new
Does
all-time
anybody?
high.
Yeah. Do you guys own Tesla? I own a little bit, but
I do. Yeah, I'm a pretty big Tesla bull, and I have been since like 2013. I'm
good
pretty
timing.
excited about it.
Yeah. This is a question for you then, man. I don't know.
I think I don't know if it'll outperform Bitcoin. I mean, I do think it'll do well over the next year. If you line up sort of the 2016, 2017 cycle with the current cycle, Tesla basically was doing the same exact thing it was doing exactly 8 years ago. And what it ended up doing is rallying up. It would correspond to $600 for today's market, what it did back then. So I'm hoping to see it go there in 2025, but we'll see. I don't know. I think that's it.
I would imagine that that Elon Musk will be, 2025. He will be expecting, having scratched Donald Trump's back. I imagine he'll be expecting to get his own back thoroughly scratched. So you would imagine that Tesla will benefit, from things like these tariffs that Trump is talking about, and I mean. If I was Elon Musk, I'd be pretty pissed off if I didn't get, if Tesla didn't have an absolutely stellar year in 2025, because, I'm sure he didn't give Trump all that support just for nothing.
Man, unburdened by what has been.
Tesla, I mean, Tesla was really undervalued against the S&P 500 a few months ago because it was, you had basically every other. The original Magnificent Seven, essentially, I think like all of them were at all-time highs except for Tesla. And it just seemed like it was relatively undervalued. And now it's I think its market cap is like 1.3 trillion or something now.
Wow.
But there's plenty of companies that are, over 2 trillion. So we'll see. I mean, I think Tesla is a good name to hold long term, but it's been on a tear recently. So you're going to get a pullback at some point. I don't know exactly when that'll be, but all right, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in again. Subscribe, but more importantly, subscribe to Rob and Guy, because we're going to be over on Rob's channel next week and Guy's channel the week after that. So we'll do this a week from today. And thank you guys for tuning in. Pleasure to have you guys here as well, Guy and Rob, and we'll see you guys next time.
Adios. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everyone.